Squid or Monolith album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from Squid. This is their second full-length album, and for the last few years this band has been the latest obsession of mine. I've been a fan of theirs since their early string of very promising EPs. I'm looking directly at the Town Center EP. These were really exciting EPs that just brought a little new flair and personality to the modern post-punk and art punk sound. Not like it needed much of a facelift, but Squid were an exciting new band in it, and honestly I couldn't wait to see what they were going to pull off on their debut album, Bright Green Field. And this album, to me, I love the hell out of this thing. Now, it was a little long, sometimes a little bit too long, but overall, they were just this brand new, fresh-faced look in the worlds of art punk and post-punk, really focusing on grooves and animated performances and crescendos and explosive choruses. And we got a lot of really memorable tracks on this album, whether it be the very artsy and weird documentary filmmaker, to the epic pamphlets, to the explosive narrator, which I would go on to name my single of the year. Needless to say, I was very impressed with this debut album. I thought it was, as far as a breakthrough album goes, probably the best of the year. Now, leading up to this new album, Squid has dropped a couple of singles leading up to this thing, and I'm gonna be honest, these tracks to me were really weird and definitely much more left field and experimental than anything on their debut album. Not saying that they were bad, as a matter of fact, two of them were really excellent. Let's chat about this thing. This album is a slim trim 8 tracks, even though most of these tracks push the 5 to 6 minute boundary. This album is still pretty lengthy, not as long as their debut, but it's still a pretty meaty release, and for a lot of it, Squid do definitely turn up the heat a little bit. This album starts off with Swing in a Dream, and I'm gonna be brutally honest with you, at first, I did not understand the single. I did not get it. I thought that it was a pile of crap, and it just was not what I wanted to hear from them, even though I've come around to it quite a bit. Instantly, we are in much weirder, wonkier, and much more jagged territory. This riff is off-kilter and just genuinely weird. The synths are zany. Instantly, this album, obviously, you need to turn your brain on a little bit to really take in the whole experience. And you know what? Like I said, I've come around to it. It's actually a really exciting intro, especially when it comes to these vocals. I mean, Ollie Judge, frontman Ollie Judge on this track, absolutely sets the mood for this entire album. It's a fantastic single and a fantastic track. Devil's Den, I'm a huge fan of this track as well. This is a much more pensive, twisted track that, much like the title, is a lot darker. It's one of the more stripped down tracks. I mean, Ollie's vocals on this one really sort of guide us through this very whimsical instrumental. There's no grooves, there's no jagged riffs, but there's a whole lot of wonder and mystique. Some of the blasts of energy that we get in the second half of this track are just enough to really wake me up, which, you know, I kind of needed. It's short, it's sweet, it's a great tune. And then we have Siphon song, which may be the most experimental cut here. I mean, once again, we're not really focusing on jagged riffs and off-kilter rhythms, and that is not anywhere in sight. Instead, we get layers and layers and layers of synths, and it honestly keeps you on the edge of your seat. There's a serious amount of mystery to this track. Now, the heavily edited vocals on this track, honestly, they are not going to be for everyone, especially because this is a 6-minute track. I mean, it's a freaky left field jam, and if you don't like it, I get it. But for such an oddball tune, I find it really easily to escape into. It's a twisted journey, one that I just can't look away from, and the way that this track builds on just how little it started with, it's impressive. Now, much like their debut, I don't really have a lot of bad to report here. My issue is this track list is only 8 songs long, and you know, when you have 2 big beefy cuts kind of being awkward, things get messier than they should. Undergrowth, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people love it, but I still don't think it's a very effective track. Especially with just how focused a lot of this album has been. You know, it's weird, but it's certainly, you know, on track. This track is too bored sounding for me and way too laid back. This track just sort of meanders along and doesn't have that same gut punch that the rest of the tracks here do. There's also, if you had seen the Bulls' swimming attempts, you would have stayed away. This is the album's finale, and very clearly here they have broken out every bell and whistle that they have, because this is one of the oddest tracks here. Zany instrumentals, weirdo performances. It's a little much, though. I don't know, this track to me just sounds, I don't know, a lot cooler and a lot more exciting on paper, because this track has a lot of ideas clashing into one another, and some of them are really good, but overall, I don't know. This just to me is not the complete package. Yeah, I don't think I like this as a full album project nearly as much as I was ecstatic over Bright Green Field. But Squid definitely still come through with a lot of very exciting, must-hear post-punk and art punk. The Blades is one of my favorite deep cuts here. I mean, it's one of the quieter tunes, but it also has a ton going on. I mean, honestly, this track has one of the best grooves on this entire album. This track is just, man, it's tight. It's the complete package. It becomes this swirling mass of post-punk and art punk with whimsical side ventures and a whole lot of left hooks. I love it. It's wonky and it's weird, but it's still really inviting just how friggin' out there it gets. And even the more pensive sections on this track are done really well. After the Flash has a real quiet intensity to it. It creeps along with serious just feelings of danger and mystique as well. And between the drama, the depth, and the atmosphere, I'm actually really impressed with where we're at. I mean, yeah, I was a little worried listening to the singles leading up to this album, and while I'm not as enamored with it as their debut, this is still a must-hear album. And Green Light is one of the most freakish and genuinely out there tunes that we get here. It's got that winding angular riff, and it has the intensity that this album has lacked. For a late album treat, this track goes freaking hard. It's the sort of thrill ride that I wish we got a little bit more of. Now, leading up to this album, I was a little worried about the direction of it, and I don't know why, because for the most part, Squid really do pull off still just a really great album in art punk and post-punk. But I wish that there was a little bit more variety on this album. I wish there were some stronger grooves and some bigger hooks. If you were looking for something that was much more experimental, left field, definitely weirder after their debut, you're gonna love the hell out of this thing. But for me, it's just not up to the very high standard of their debut album, but still a very solid album. So much so, I'm feeling a strong 7 on this album. Let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.